Hello again, and welcome back to another edition of The Works. I'm Jim.
I'm Diane.
Hey, have you seen this? They have a thing they've been advertising that's an app and a device, and it's all in one, that combines all your different services, you know, HBO Max and Sling and Hulu and Poo, all into one thing.
Called cable?
It used to be called cable, but,
Yeah.
you know, nobody wants to accept that we've already been there and done that. And yet they're...
So what's this new one called?
I don't care. We've had this before, and if these new millennials think that this is the latest, greatest, newest, bestest thing ever, we've been there and we've done that. And it's like, you know,
Well,
I'm getting to the point where I'm just talking to a brick wall.
By the time you add up all the different platforms that you subscribe to, isn't that equal to the cost of cable?
Well,
And
in all
you
honesty...
you need internet in order to stream all these things. So if you're getting internet through your cable provider, why not do...
Yeah, and that was my argument and I acquiesced and went to our cable company's own streaming device. I hate to say this and this was the conspiracy, and this is another conspiracy theory which we've talked about, not this one in particular, but the reality is that the coax cable that comes into your home, that when everyone and their mother had a cable network, you know, cable networks were springing up all over the place. And hell, as a matter of fact, I think they've all channeled their energy into podcast. Everyone now is a podcast, but back in the day, we had all of these cable networks. My point is that the cable industry realized that they were going to have a problem with all of these, if you will, channels that had to be thrown down a coax cable, and the resolutions were getting more demanding. Bit rates were more demanding. Point is that you can only jam so much data
Down a coax cable.
Down a coax cable that was an audio visual, that was in a true RF sense, and that's what television had been for the longest time. Of course, as you know, we went through that transition where terrestrial television stopped its traditional analog broadcast. An antenna could pick it up. Now it's all digital, which is, again, it's different. It's not transmitting the same thing over a VHS,
through the airwaves,
amplitude modulated, frequency modulated signals. But anyway, my point was, the cable companies knew that they were going to either shoot themselves in the foot by not being able to provide all the channels because there were so many becoming available. And what do you do? And the issue there is they limited to, when internet became a thing, the internet was on the negative side of the cable. And long story short is, as much as I hate to admit it, that the streaming box is better when it comes down to the technical resolution you can get out of any visual media, television channel, network, app, whatever you want to call it. Cable could never deliver anything greater than 720p.
Oh, okay.
And televisions are 4K, 8K now. You cannot get that, the physical, what's the word I'm looking, bandwidth? The
through
pipe,
the coax.
You can't get enough bit rate, data rate, to support that on the coaxial side. You can, however, with the internet, with just internet signal alone, that's why the bit rates are better, and that's why resolutions are better on programs.
As long as you get your connection is fine, because when your connection
that's a whole other issue.
It gets all pixely.
Well, nope. Part of the issue there is what we failed to realize is, if we want to, cable companies offer different service rates and wireless companies offer different plans, right? There's unlimited, or you're capped. If you don't pay for everything unlimited, then they cap you at 720 or 1080. Basically, they're governing how much data that you can get. That's not happened yet from a internet perspective. Well, it hasn't. We buy things in tiers. 100 megabits a second, 500 megabits, or, a gigabit. Point is that when you're competing against literally tens of other things that are on your internet, your damn light bulbs, your refrigerator, your oven, your kids and all their devices, that's hogging bandwidth at the same time. So if you're streaming something, that's the big mother load.
The big draw.
You have to have a gigabit. Then the other problem is if you don't have a decent mesh network in your home, that you're going to, again, screw yourselves by not being able to stream what you want at any given time. And honestly, the innocent days of having a cable box in everyone's room and watching different channels at the same time, unless you're pulling down, gigabit speeds and better, you can't do that in more than 3-4 devices. Stream live, real programming at a decent frame rate and a decent resolution. But anyway, I didn't mean to get off on that tangent. But
nowadays nobody's watching. At least in this household, you and I are the only ones that are watching programs. That the kids, that it's all about games and
it is. But I'm surprised how many people have YouTube TV, which is basically
cable,
all the other things, but delivered. Which again cracks me up because you're paying for the internet, which you're getting it from your internet cable provider. And I hate to say, and God loves Spectrum. Shout out to them because you get all these other apps by just having the Spectrum package.
Right. We don't have to have a separate Hulu, Disney, Peacock.
I mean, there's now. Granted, unlike
you get commercials. Yeah.
Unlike before. And see, we kind of fell into this trap. And this is actually, okay, this is a great segue because I wanted to talk about loyalty programs. And then in essence, this is kind of the reverse of a loyalty program where you're paying a subscription in order to get better service. Because with those, Peacock and, YouTube's a great, and
Paramount.
And all of them, if you're not paying them separately, you're going to be relegated to commercials. In essence,
right, as you would when you were on cable television.
Well, if you were looking for primetime programming that cost a lot of money to produce, certainly to offset that, the networks had to charge.
Do something, yeah.
Right. So, which again brings me to what I wanted to talk about, which is loyalty programs. And that in itself it's funny how they've changed over the years from wanting to capture a customer's loyalty by incentivizing you to come back to now the idea is, and there's one economist that's called it the two tariff economy, where if you don't pay as a subscriber to these services, then you're relegated to being inundated with commercials. So an example of what I'm referring to is, look at Amazon. You're paying annually for Amazon, which innocently you think, oh, that's getting you free shipping. Well, hell, anything more now. There's a lot of this free shipping that's gone away. It costs you extra if you want it quick.
Right.
Or you can wait and get that friggin' dollar digital thing that nobody uses.
Right. Or the ones that aren't through Amazon Prime, by the time you add in shipping, it becomes the price of what it is through Amazon Prime. So you're truly not getting anything for free shipping. But I do like their media content.
What, Amazon?
Yeah. That's truly what you're paying for.
Well, but after they've monopolized the industry, they've got money to go out and buy catalogs like Sony or whomever it is that they purchased recently. And that's another thing. I can't tell you how many times I've bought music from Sony and only find out that it's not there anymore because that catalog was sold to somebody else. And, I can't wait for... What isn't there going to be a lawyer or some law group that's going to be able to figure out the class action suit against that? I mean, I've paid for that music over and over again. And now, again, look, it's a subscription thing with Spotify. But my point with the Amazon and loyalty, now they've gotten this bastardly thing where if you want to buy something, if you buy it on subscription, it's cheaper than buying it regular. So you're almost penalized for just buying something. One, so you've got your subscription fee to be an Amazon person. Mm-hmm. And then if you want to buy something, hey, it could be X% cheaper if you buy it on subscription.
Meaning, like a regulated once a month.
Sure.
they send it to you. Right.
So they're forcing loyalty, not wanting to encourage loyalty, but forcing loyalty.
Right.
That's the way I look at it. But and well, some other current examples that absolutely crazy is Barnes and Noble went to this concept of, hey, when you check out, if you show me your discount card, which costs you $40 a year, you'll get 10% off.
Right.
So again, you're prepaying your loyalty,
Your
to them,
discount. Yeah.
which doesn't make sense to me. What a loyalty program
You
was
should-
invented for was
Right.
the idea of wooing you back into the store from that particular merchant. But I guess those days are gone because everything's on Amazon, right? The monopoly has created its own madness, and now it's forcing us to buy from, well, the only place that it makes sense. I mean, and that's the worst part, is I've run into those situations too many times that it's cheaper to get it on Amazon. I hate to say,
Right.
too many times.
Right. I'm a hypocrite. I complain that they're a monopoly of all kinds of things, but then, you get busy in the day to day and you forget something, and shoot, I just don't want to get out of the house, and they'll deliver it tomorrow. I mean, why not?
Right. But here's the fun thing. So did a little pre-show work on loyalty programs. And I had no idea that the loyalty programs actually started in ancient Egypt.
Huh?
The Egyptians would practice this incentivization. Is that the right word? Incentivization? Yeah. To incentivize those workers of the pharaohs that did work would get tokens. And those tokens were turned in for, bread or food, things like that. And what was interesting, and the reason that there are mathematicians and scientists and professors today that give the Egyptians this distinction of being the first to initiate loyalty programs is what we think of loyalty programs. We kind of think of tiers, right? You're either a gold, silver.
Oh,
Oh,
yeah.
it cracks me, of course, like with some of them. It's copper, silver, gold, and then they realize platinum is better than gold, so let's make a fourth. Then they realize titanium is better. So now there's 5, and I can't wait for them to find some other element
Well,
that's more important. But
like with your Marriott loyalty program, you've been with them forever, and gold was the highest, so you busted butt to get all the gold perks, and that's not the high tier anymore.
well, that's my okay. So
yeah,
they and sure, they can change their rules. They don't have to offer free night, I guess, if you think about it, right? But I was just making the comparison to what the Egyptians did. What makes them complete what is a true loyalty program? So they gave out these tokens, not currency, so loyalty is not a currency based or fiat based system. It's a true it's a give back. It's a be back. So in this case, the pharaohs would give the workers that were willing to work, they'd give them, a token, that you could redeem for bread or something, like I said. And then the interesting part was for those that did more sophisticated or higher work, like those that maybe managed an area of people that moved a rock one day, their royalty, they were in a class. There was a multiplier. So here's where the tier system comes in. So it's clever. So you had those that were a tier 1, which is, the commoners, probably somebody like me. And then you had those that maybe were managing others that were a tier 2 or a tier 4. Maybe the medical voodoo guy took care, maybe he got a tier 10. So for every token he got, he could redeem his, but then he showed a special card. I mean, again, here, think about the loyalty, right? You want the special card. You want the signification of being part of a group. And that group said, I'm at 10 times. So I could take my one token, and instead of 1 loaf of bread, I got 10 because I was more special than others. So that's kind of cool that they did that you had this system. In this case, you rewarded those because currency wasn't invented then, right? So before currency. Now, again, doing a little bit of homework and just to try to make the topic more interesting, more podcast worthy, I guess, is in the United States, the first, quote, loyalty program, they attribute it to a market, little mercantile place in Sunbury, New Hampshire, in which basic idea, now keep in mind, this is in the late 1700s to early 1800s, they were around. 1793 to be exact. So keep in mind that time frame, right? Your history, we're just becoming colonies. And as you might know, or you might not, and I'm telling you now, that as a country, a fledgling country, we really didn't have one central currency. Hell, we didn't have a central bank, and I'll get to that in a minute, right?
Right.
So without that central currency, we did have currency. And
right.
in a lot of cases, each individual state.
Each colony or each state.
Mm-hmm. What made this interesting was this little merchant in New Hampshire rewarded his customers with a copper token. He had them created, copper token. And like money that we attribute today's modern currency, well, I shouldn't say modern, but up until, as you know, the 60s, when they did away with the standard of, silver and gold standard, that even the paper money, but money was generally created with some sort of precious metal. Copper wasn't considered precious because we didn't have, but gold and silver, that was the precious metal of the day. So the merchants created these copper tokens, and they would basically reward. As you collected a copper token as a customer, guess what? You got another one when you came back. You got another one. And so the retailers, in this particular case, the concept was, hey, I'm going to offer a buck off if you redeem 10 of your tokens with me. You've done a couple things, right? You've created loyalty with the customer. The customer's happy to come to you. You, as a merchant, have some steady business.
Right.
And from a customer's perspective, you're almost kind of creating brand loyalty.
Right. And the customers will advertise for you by telling others that they can, you can collect these things and get. So instead of having an advertising budget, you have a loyalty program budget.
And indeed, creating a, quote, copper token was, it wasn't free. Let's face it, these merchants had to spend some money on the copper token. And part of it was advertising. They had their name on it. They had a logo on it, whatever. And so this was going on until 1861. Well, I'm jumping ahead, but the Panic of 1837 is where some of this issue of using precious materials for, in this case, tokens, became an issue. And 1837, apparently there was this major financial crisis, surprisingly, and you'd think that we'd learn. But it all had to do with the fact that this westward, we were all going west. And I guess part of the problem was, and again, we started to invent money that was not just by state, but the government was issuing dollars, which were supposedly backed by precious
silver,
metal, right? Or gold, silver, etc. Part of the problem was everyone was moving west. Banks were lending out money, which was paper, to buy land. People stopped paying. They actually had a real estate bubble, much like we've had, and you and I have experienced personal bubble issues in 2008. Yeah. But believe it or not, the economy went through an incredibly bad recession in this, quote, Panic of 1837, in which that the government refused to take any money for any land that wasn't gold or silver. So so of course, what did that mean? There was a run on banks.
Oh.
So there was no.
They got cleared out.
Yeah. And then the twist in all of this, and of course what added insult to injury, was the Civil War, which again, the government needed the gold and silver for, its thing. But that panic had also somewhat created this issue with all the different states, and in particular this loyalty thing, right? So in 1864, the government enacted the Coinage Act, that no other non-government entity in this country could mint any, quote, coin or, token in this case, that had a value, an intrinsic value that was, again,
Okay.
so with that said, though, the idea of the loyalty program was still clever from a marketing perspective,
yeah.
right? So
Do you remember the?
I'm gonna probably
Go ahead.
get so. Let's go back to the time frame. So in the 1860s,
Mm-hmm.
after the whole you can't mint tokens, the Great Atlantic and Pacific Tea Company, which I didn't know was A&P,
Oh.
which was the chain. Exactly. So A&P created the first check. And that check was you bought X number of dollars of things at A&P.
And you got the stamps.
And, well, stamps not yet. You got
Oh.
a check, and that check you had to collect. But basically the same to where you're going with the same concept is not only was a check, in this case, worth something dollar-wise at the grocery store, but then you had the entrepreneurial folks that said, why don't I offer other services or goods that if I incentivize people to collect these, they could buy these from me. And then ultimately that took the burden off of the local chain to manage all of that loyalty program stuff, because
Okay.
that is expensive
yeah.
to create, the checks and to manage it and to redeem and, all those other things.
Yeah.
right?
It takes time.
So fast forward to, looking at my notes. Fast forward to the Sperry and Hutchinson Company.
Sperry and Hutchinson. Okay.
Okay, so now what did those green stamps have on them? They were called S&H stamps.
Oh.
That's
yeah.
Sperry and Hutchinson. So
Okay.
they converted the check program into stamps.
Huh.
And they approached all of these retailers and invented, because we didn't have the internet back then, or they didn't have the internet back
Yeah.
then. So they created the Idea Book of Distinguished Merchandise, which was the catalog.
The catalog. That was so fun to look at.
So the catalog was invented by the Sperry and Hutchinson Company in 1896.
Wow.
So if you think about back in and again, us Gen Xers, I remember East Coast, Pennsylvania, S&H stamps were given at the grocery. I don't think much past probably 78, 79. I don't recall them
Yeah, I don't.
being used.
I just remember them in the 70s.
Yes. And I'll get to that in just a minute. So the height of all of this, and they did surveys and they did, analytics around how much traffic was it really driving, to the retailers. And the sad part of this, and we actually talked about this recently, is that in the 50s, retailers were starting to toy with the idea of, this is a lot of logistics for us to give the stamps, the redemption of the stamp, the merchandise and all this. They decided to put the money into something called generics. That's where we got the store brands and the generics. Is the stores
okay.
the stores wanted to reward their customers, but in this case, they wanted to also make it not so expensive for them. So the whole idea of the loyalty program changed dramatically from a retail perspective, late 50s and 60s, when these grocery stores, these retailers that, you had Sperry and Hutchinson, great, the concept of taking it away from the local folks and making it more national. But the reality is it was expensive. It was expensive to create the stamps. It was and the catalogs. Mm-hmm. I mean, hell, that was another, back in the days of the anchors at the mall, Sears and Penny's, nothing more exciting than the wish book.
The wish book, yes.
Right? Which you get before Christmas. But long story short, the idea of the retailers, and as you know, the idea of, we had more independent grocers back in the day. That's why there was this sort of bringing together from the Sperry and Hutchinson, the S&H
Right.
stamps concept.
The IGAs.
Yeah, exactly. And it was, and for the retailers, until they started to kind of form their own image, A&P was obviously one of them, they thought in the 50s and 60s, why don't we focus on our brand? And that's exactly what they did. And they kind of let the stamp thing kind of go away. But watching all of this and watching, the result of the concept of what a loyalty program from a corporation perspective was supposed to do in 79, then called the Texas International Air Plane Company.
Okay.
So they came up with, and it was an interesting name for their loyalty program. They call it Payola Pass. So for all those flyers, or frequent flyers as they coined that phrase, they got a mile. For every mile they flew, they were recording or clocking a mile in their little bank, so to speak. So the airline would create these artificial, 25,000 and you get a free 10,000 mile trip or a round trip to wherever you want to go.
Right, or an upgrade to first class, or...
Well, that stuff came... But yes, that's the concept was they would give you 1 mile for every 1 mile that you flew. And so... And when the concept... And this is, again, when the concept changed dramatically, is instead of the loyalty giving you a good or giving you cash money back, what this was a promise to give you something later, so that you accumulated this idea of a point or a thing.
Right.
That's the loyalty.
Just the promise of something. Because if you don't save enough, there's nothing ventured, nothing gained. They're not losing anything.
Right. And I guess part of this for me, and I had not to jump forward, but there's nothing more annoying when you're checking out any retail. Even today, we went to Starbucks, and what's the first thing they want? Did you order it on the app? No. And then when you get there, you have to, of course, say no to the tip or give a tip, whatever. But this idea of, again, how do you identify yourself? And it's all basically, hey, it's your phone number, and all of these retail, companies and establishments are supposedly tracking all this data and making it valuable. But part of the reason they want that and the incentive to do that is to give you something on the back end, and that's you get for every dollar you spend, you get a point. But yeah, with the airlines, it was interesting because they finally latched onto the notion of, instead of giving you something back, like the S&H, concept was, you could buy a washer and dryer if you had enough stamps.
Right.
That's technically the way it worked. And if I'm not mistaken, the book itself was 100 stamps, which equated, I think it was, or 100, maybe it was, it was 100 stamps.
And so many books would buy, it would tell you how many books it would take.
And
that was fun shopping, when Grandma would bring out the books, and then you could pick up.
Well, and of course, part of it was you had to lick the stamp, put it in the book.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, and think about the cost of that. You have to make the stamp. As a matter of fact, remember, that whole contraption was, in addition to the, somewhat antiquated cash register, but then you had to flip these dials to get the damn stamps to come out. And then, of course, hold on to the stamps that were sticky. I mean, not
if your
self-sealing.
hands were.
Right. And then get them home and then collect them and put them somewhere. But so loyalty went away from, rewarding you with a catalog of, wonderful goods and, things you can buy.
Service merchandise?
Well, service merchandise, the concept there was, it was like an all-in-one mall department. You could basically get anything. The fun part of that was you went to the computer in the store, you typed in stuff, blah, 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 and then it would come down the conveyor belt. To me, that was the fun part of service merchandise.
Yeah.
Is basically, you felt like you were checking yourself out. The associates in the store were just there to help you, with, looking at the merchandise or answering questions, but no money exchanged hands there. It was all done at that little kiosk computer. And again, from a loyalty, there were all the companies, all the other companies. I mean, there were tobacco companies. You collected little things that then if you 500 of them, you get free cigars. I mean, everybody was doing this loyalty thing. Something along those lines. And then, of course, like I said, it drastically changed when, the first airline in 79 created this Payola Pass, which then Texas Air apparently became Continental, which was big, right? But they don't exist anymore. Yeah, who is Continental now? I don't know. I probably should have looked that up. But then what became interesting from that perspective is later in the 80s, the loyalty program that we kind of know from the airlines today. The airlines said, you know what, you're flying. You're probably going to need a place to stay wherever you're going, and you're going to probably need a car. So they got in bed with the rental car companies and the hotels. So for every mile, you got a point. And that point was good at, Hertz or Avis and Marriott. So they can, and again, how clever, right? You've got an industry that's basically
captive audience
based on travel, and
you got to stay somewhere. Why not?
Yeah. And so, that whole concept of, again, loyalty was really to woo and keep a customer, and you develop that loyalty. Like I said, it's different today. Today it seems loyalty is something that you pay into. It's a subscription. It's almost like a gym membership anymore. Right? If you want the basic gym membership, it costs you this. You want access to the pool, it's going to cost you this.
Right.
And no different is, like I said, Amazon with the now buying a subscription to a product that you want to pay for. Hell, I mean, it's like they're double dipping. It just seems, and it's become overburdensome everywhere you go.
Right.
And
it's not like, since there's so many, quote, loyalty programs, I'm not loyal to you. I am just doing this so that I can get the 5 cents off. I'm not, if there's another store that's like this, similar to it, I'll go there and punch in the number there too. I mean, it truly doesn't buy you anything. It isn't buying my loyalty. It's just a nuisance.
Well, and I guess, I'd be curious if anyone else remembers the green stamps or any other, loyalty program. I think, wasn't it as a kid, it wasn't Cracker Jack, but maybe it was the Mallow Cups that had, and as a matter of fact, we went to one of these retro candy places recently, and they have that check inside each, individual candy bar, and sometimes it was worth 10 or 20 or 100, and then of course you could buy X-ray specs if you had enough.
Oh, I don't remember that.
Really?
Well, then again, I didn't eat a lot of candy as a kid.
Okay,
so.
It's a comic book too.
Yeah.
Those things at the end of the comic.
Or the dum-dum suckers. If you collected so many of them, you could trade it in for something.
And they had just, as a matter of fact, it was probably close to 98, 99, that up until then they had done away. They just had done away. The reason I remember that is they're from Ohio.
Okay.
I knew a friend that he was their accountant, and yeah, I mean, you saved the little papers and then you'd send them in, but think about the overhead that's involved in dealing with that and the mail. Right. And hell, now postage costs you $1 just to send something.
Yeah,
and
it's not worth it.
So yeah, well, and bazooka gum. I mean, there was some of those, and in wax packs of trading cards, you'd get, again, something that would tell you, you got 10 points for this and 100 points for that. And that was just a way of, again, the incentive to collect.
Oh, and my golden ticket with a Wonka bar.
Sure, yeah. It was, you'd think that finally with all the technology that was introduced that, even General Mills, again, you saved your box tops. Remember, you're supposed to send those into the school.
Oh, yeah.
I remember Campbell's labels. You were supposed to save
those, yeah. The UPC code.
But why, when did that really change as far as the idea of that save? And I guess one of the other pieces that's changed in the 80s, a lot of folks started to charge their groceries. And when you use credit cards to charge things, there's money being had on the back end just because of the fees.
Right.
And so a lot of these companies realized that the future in buying something that was purchased on credit, you don't want to get into that situation because, you're not getting the cash. It's a different, things evolved. But you would have thought that maybe, you carry one card. Here it again, tying all of this together like a good comedian does. like with all of our apps, having one thing called a cable box or an app box. Maybe we should call it that.
Yeah.
But why couldn't there be a website that gave you one unique number, or your phone number? And I hate to tell you that the part of the problem is that it's not like I changed my phone number a lot, but the phone number that we have associated with certain things
Right.
has changed.
Right. It
And then
used
I
to
try
be
to
the home number, and it's like, I don't remember because nobody has a home phone number anymore. Or was it the home number when we lived in Virginia, which was,
Well,
so trying to figure out which number. Was it the cell phone? Was it the Columbus number?
Well,
Was it?
I missed that concept too, is, wherever you went,
There you are.
That, and wherever you went, you were part of an area code that would identify, hey, that's a Virginia. Now it's bullshit. Everyone has their own numbers. They can make up a number. It doesn't really matter.
Right. And you can move to a completely different state and not have to change your cell phone number.
Yeah. So, if anybody, can remember any of those loyalty programs that I don't know, brings back nostalgia, drop a note, let us know. And also, we've procured a couple of guests in upcoming episodes, so stay tuned for that. But as always, we appreciate spending some time with you. And this is Jim.
I'm Diane.
You've been listening to another edition of The Works.
Toodles.